My name is Dean Warner. I'm 38, Midwest-born and raised Columbus, Ohio, now living in Denver the last 8 years. I work as a field engineer for a power utilities firm, not glamorous but solid work. Keeps the lights on. I travel a lot for projects across Colorado and Wyoming, long stints, long days, a lot of time in hotel rooms that all look the same after a while. That's also how I lost her. Or thought I did. Her name's Melissa. Or as I started to call her toward the end, stranger in my bed. We'd been married 7 years. No kids by her choice, not mine. We had a modest house in a nice neighborhood outside Boulder. Melissa worked in marketing for a mid-sized ad agency downtown. She was social, sharp, the kind of woman who lights up a room and knows it. I was quieter, blue-collar family, Army before I got into engineering, didn't mind that she had the spotlight. I figured we balanced each other out. I worked hard. Paid for most of that house, that car, those dinners with her friends I never really connected with. And I thought we were solid. Right up until one Wednesday night in early September. I was supposed to be in Cheyenne for 3 more days. Last-minute call, equipment fault, project delayed. I drove back that evening, tired but relieved to sleep in my own bed for once. Didn't bother calling ahead, wanted to surprise her. I pulled into our driveway around 9:30 p.m. Lights were on inside, soft jazz playing. I remember that because Melissa hated jazz. Always said it was music for men trying too hard. That should have tipped me off. But what really hit me was the unfamiliar gray Lexus parked out front. Plates from Nevada. I sat there for a moment, heart doing double time. Thought maybe it was a friend. Maybe her sister. But deep down I knew. I left my bag in the truck and walked to the door. It wasn't even locked. I stepped inside. The scene that greeted me will be burned in my mind until the day I die. Melissa on the couch, legs draped over a man I'd never seen, tall, fit, mid-40s, wearing what looked like a $1,000 suit. 2 half-empty wine glasses. Laughter midair like a knife. Her face when she saw me that I'll never forget either. Wide eyes, flush draining from her cheeks, wine glass clinking slightly against the table. "Dean," she stammered, standing too fast. The man stood too calm as a saint. "You must be Dean." "I'm Derek." He offered a hand. I didn't take it. I just looked at her. "Is this what you do while I'm putting 80 hours a week into paying off this house?" Melissa opened her mouth, closed it. "Dean, it's not like that. I was going to tell you. That's what they always say, right? I was going to tell you." I turned. Walked out. Not a word more. Sat in my truck, hands trembling. I couldn't bring myself to drive away for a long time. Eventually I did, ended up in a Motel 6 on the edge of town. Cheap, grimy, anonymous. Fitting. The next day she called. 20 times. I answered none. I spent 3 days in that motel room, thinking. Drinking too much. Running every moment of our marriage through my mind like a film stuck on repeat. Then, finally, clarity. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't even going to cry anymore. I was going to make her pay. And not with fists or public scenes or some cheap stunt. I wanted it to hurt. I wanted her to feel, in her gut, the depth of the betrayal she'd carved into me. But first, I needed to know everything. Who exactly was Derek? How long had this been going on? And most importantly, what buttons could I press to make Melissa's perfect little world unravel? I checked out of the motel the next morning and called my old Army buddy, Mitch. He runs a small but very effective private investigation business in Denver. "Cheating wife?" he asked, no judgment in his voice. I didn't answer. Just said, "I need full surveillance. Her and the man. Discreet. No corners cut." He said he'd get started immediately. While Mitch worked, I moved into a short-term rental across town. Told work I needed a couple weeks of leave, personal reasons. They didn't argue. My record gave me that much. Meanwhile, Melissa sent emails, texts, voicemails ranging from begging to threatening to guilt-tripping. I responded to none. 5 days later, Mitch called. "You better sit down," he said. "I'm already sitting." He sighed. This guy Derek, real name Derek Holloway. 46. Works as a financial advisor. Married, or rather, separated, wife in Reno. He's a piece of work. Known for targeting women with money or assets he can leverage. I felt my stomach drop. Melissa wasn't rich, but she had the house in both her names, a retirement account I'd helped build, and a trust fund from her late grandfather she rarely mentioned. And Derek? He was a predator. And she'd fallen for it. But the piece de resistance was this: Mitch had photos. Videos. Text records pulled from a burner phone Derek used, stuff Melissa clearly thought was safe. One message from Melissa to Derek 3 weeks prior. "He's too dumb to notice. Once the Reno house sells, we'll have enough to leave him and start fresh." Finally free. That was when something inside me turned ice cold. Too dumb to notice. I called Mitch. I want to ruin her. And him. He was silent for a beat. Then, let's get to work. For the first time since I'd walked out of that house, I felt purpose again. Revenge isn't righteous. It isn't noble. It doesn't fix the wound. But it gives you a reason to stand back up. And I was standing. Mitch and I met at his office, a dingy second-floor walk-up above a pawn shop. The kind of place that looked like it hadn't seen a vacuum since the Clinton administration. But Mitch was sharp. Always had been. We served together in Ramadi. He knew how to peel back layers people didn't want peeled. He spread out a file folder across a battered desk. Inside were photos Melissa and Derek at a swanky rooftop bar at a weekend cabin in Estes Park I'd never heard about, and most damning, at a bank, entering together and leaving 15 minutes later with Melissa carrying a white envelope. They opened a joint account, Mitch said flatly. Account summary here. He handed me a printout. $48,500. Most of that from our joint savings. Money I'd put in, money she must have thought I wouldn't notice gone while I was working 14-hour days. Rage simmered in my gut, but I kept my voice level. Good. The more they move in tandem, the harder they fall. Mitch leaned back. So, what's your play? I had been thinking long and hard about that. A few instincts were obvious: legal action, confront Derek's wife in Reno, expose them publicly. But that wasn't enough. I wanted the revenge to sting. I wanted her to feel isolated, ruined like a fool, and to watch her trust in Derek shatter before her eyes. And that meant patience. I want her reputation gone, I said. I want him exposed to his wife and business. And I want her financial life to go to hell. Mitch grinned slightly. You always did think like a tactician. He slid me another document. Derek's got an Achilles heel, he said. He's not a legitimate advisor. Runs under an umbrella firm in Reno, technically licensed, but the SEC's already sniffed around him once for shady offshore transfers. You shake that tree, it'll rain trouble. I leaned forward. Perfect. And Melissa. She's an idiot right now. Thinks she's getting a new life with a con man. I've intercepted 2 messages she sent to her best friend Kelsey. One said, exact words, Dean's old-fashioned, he won't fight. By the time he wakes up, I'll have moved everything. Oh, Melissa. You never understood me at all. I told Mitch my plan. Slowly, carefully, piece by piece. He listened, then nodded. It'll take time, he said. You ready to play the long game? I looked him dead in the eye. I've got nothing but time. Over the next 2 weeks, the wheels started turning. First, I quietly hired a forensic accountant, an old contact of Mitch's, to audit everything Melissa and I held jointly, and her separate assets too. We discovered that, in addition to draining our savings, she was preparing to cash out part of her trust fund early, no doubt at Derek's urging. Second, we set up a dummy account under my name only and slowly began moving my share of our funds, pension contributions, and assets into protected status. Legally airtight. Third, I crafted an anonymous dossier about Derek's shady dealings, complete with source documents from public records, fake reviews from his former clients, some of whom were victims verified by Mitch, and damning photos of him at gambling tables in Reno while supposedly advising clients. This dossier went to 2 parties simultaneously. The SEC field office in Denver. Derek's estranged wife, courtesy of a legal firm Mitch recommended. I paid extra to make sure the delivery was impactful. She'd opened that package on her birthday. And then came the most delicate part, engineering Melissa's fall from within. For that, I needed her best friend. I reached out to Kelsey anonymously first, email from a fake account with one simple message. If you think Derek is who Melissa believes he is, you should look again. For her sake. Attached, 2 photos from Mitch's surveillance, Derek with another woman in Reno. Timestamped last week. It didn't take long. 2 days later, Mitch called. Kelsey just confronted Melissa. Big blow up. Melissa denies everything but the seeds planted. She's already doubting him. Excellent. Doubt is like a crack in a windshield, spread is inevitable. Next, I booked an appointment with a family law attorney, discreet but aggressive. Laid out everything, provided all documentation. We prepared papers to freeze joint assets and to block any transfer of the house without my consent. Finally, I had my last move ready. The one that would rip the floor out from under her. But that would come later. I wasn't going to confront her until everything was in motion. Until escape wasn't an option. The first real sign that my revenge was taking root came 2 weeks after the Kelsey incident. Melissa showed up at my rental unannounced. First time I'd seen her face-to-face since that night. She looked drawn, pale, makeup imperfect, the queen of control starting to fray. Dean, can we talk? I stepped outside, arms crossed. I don't see why. Her voice trembled, just slightly. I know you're upset, but this is all a mistake. Derek, he loves me. He's helping me figure things out. We were moving too fast. I stared at her, dead-eyed. That what you told your friend? Or yourself? Color rose in her cheeks. Dean, you can't fight this. We're separating. You'll only make it worse on yourself. I couldn't help a small smile. Melissa, you already did the worst thing possible. Yeah? I'm just following through. She blinked. What does that mean? I didn't answer. Just walked back inside and closed the door. Through the peephole, I watched her stand there, uncertain, hands trembling, for a full minute before she finally left. One by one, the cracks were spreading. And soon, the entire facade would collapse. I would make absolutely certain of it. Melissa's visit to my rental told me one thing. She was scared. Not enough yet, not fully aware of the trap tightening, but the seeds had been sown. Doubt and panic were setting in. Perfect. The next week unfolded like a chess match. I made no move publicly. No message to her. No lawyer's letter delivered yet. But Mitch's surveillance continued and the accountant finalized the protective legal shield around my portion of our assets. Melissa, meanwhile, was spiraling. Mitch caught her on video visiting her lawyer 3 times in 4 days. Caught her in a parking lot after one of those meetings, arguing with Derek in his car. No audio, but body language said it all, Melissa waving her arms, Derek smirking, then grabbing her wrist when she tried to leave. A day later, a new detail emerged. Derek's estranged wife had filed a formal complaint to the SEC based on our package. And she wasn't stopping there, she'd filed a civil suit and her Reno lawyer was going public. Word was going to spread. Fast. But before that broke, I needed one last layer in place. The emotional kill shot. The final piece of the puzzle was Melissa's marketing job. She lived for it: status dinners, social media polish, agency parties where everyone pretended their shallow world meant something important. Mitch had already discovered that Derek had convinced her to co-invest in a startup, something about a wellness app. It was a sham. Derek had done this with 2 other women before. He fronted fake investor documents, got them to contribute personal funds, then disappeared when things got hot. Melissa had already wired $12,000 into this venture. What she didn't know was that Mitch had also traced Derek's other online identities, fake profiles, private groups where he recruited his marks. I crafted an anonymous tip and forwarded it to the HR director at Melissa's agency, complete with screenshots of Derek's known aliases and posts, plus a nudge that Melissa Warner might be dangerously close to violating the agency's ethics and reputation policies.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience, but we really need your support, namely a subscription to the channel, which can make it possible to hire a professional voice actor and make the best content for you.
In an industry built on image, that was a bomb. 3 days later, Melissa was called in for a review of outside business activities. Mitch caught her coming out of that meeting in tears. One domino left to fall. That weekend, the Derek story hit local business news in Reno. Advisor accused of defrauding clients, SEC investigating. Within hours, Melissa's world imploded. Her joint account with Derek was frozen by order of the court. Her trust fund advance flagged for potential fraud involvement. And our house sale, which she had been trying to initiate without telling me, was blocked by the legal motion I'd filed through my attorney the day prior. Melissa tried calling me. Dozens of times. I answered none. Until she sent one text that almost made me laugh out loud. Dean, please. You don't understand. Derek lied to me. I never meant to hurt you. We can fix this. Fix this? After too dumb to notice and finally free? I replied with a single line. Your consequences are only beginning. The next day, I made my move publicly. I met with my attorney and initiated divorce papers, fault-based, citing financial misconduct and abandonment. We also filed a civil claim to recover my share of the joint funds Melissa had siphoned off. Within hours of the filing, Melissa's agency put her on administrative leave pending investigation. Her professional reputation was shattered. The glamorous marketing maven caught up in a sleazy scandal with a known con man, not a look that wins clients. Mitch's surveillance caught her packing a bag at the house. She looked wrecked, disheveled, frantic, pacing between phone calls. I knew why. Derek had disappeared. Wife's lawsuit. SEC breathing down his neck. His accounts frozen. Melissa had bet everything on him. And now he was gone. The house was unsellable. The trust fund blocked. Her savings drained into a scam. Her career in freefall. And her soon-to-be ex-husband? Calm, methodical, and utterly unreachable to her. 2 weeks later, I received one more message from her. A long, rambling email, half apology, half plea, half desperate self-justification. I didn't know who Derek really was. I was stupid, I know that now. Dean, I'm losing everything. Please, can we talk? Can you at least help me fix this legally? I read it twice, then deleted it. She hadn't wanted to talk when I came home to that scene in our living room. She hadn't wanted to fix things when she drained our savings. She hadn't cared what I'd built when she called me too dumb to notice. Now that she was trapped and alone, now she cared. But her caring was no longer my concern. Mitch and I met for a drink a few nights later. You got what you wanted, he said. You sure? I thought about it for a long moment. I didn't want to destroy her. Just make sure she couldn't destroy me. And that she felt every ounce of what she handed me that night. Mitch raised his glass. Well, mission accomplished. I clinked my glass against his. But in the back of my mind, one last move remained, one final, elegant twist of the knife. And I was ready to make it. Revenge is like a tide, you can't force it all at once. You let it rise, inch by inch, until the other side drowns without even realizing they're underwater. Melissa was drowning. But I wasn't done. There was one more twist I'd been saving for her and for Derek if he was foolish enough to reappear. The core of it lay in a little detail I hadn't told Mitch until recently. While cleaning out old files, I'd found the prenup. Melissa had insisted we draft one early on, mostly to protect her trust fund, back when she imagined herself the wealthier partner. I'd signed, no issue. But here's the catch, the document included a moral turpitude clause. If either party engaged in acts damaging the other's financial standing or public reputation through fraud or deception, they forfeited all claims to joint assets. Melissa had forgotten about that clause. I hadn't. I told my lawyer to invoke it in our divorce filing. We attached every scrap of evidence Mitch had gathered, her siphoning joint funds, her lying about house sales, her involvement in Derek's venture. The agency scandal sealed the argument. In one motion, her legal standing crumbled. No alimony. No joint asset share. No equity in the house, which I now had full legal control over. When her lawyer got the filing, Melissa blew up my phone. One message came through that stuck in my mind. You're trying to ruin my life out of spite. I made a mistake, but you're being cruel. Cruel? I smiled bitterly. Melissa never did understand consequences. Meanwhile, Derek's collapse accelerated. His wife's lawsuit gained traction and local news outlets in Reno and Denver both picked up the story. Photos of Derek with Melissa hit the web. And then a stroke of pure fortune. A former client of Derek's reached out to me through Mitch, an older man he'd conned out of retirement savings. The man's niece happened to work in Denver media. Within days, Melissa's name was featured in an investigative piece about advisor Derek Holloway and his network of romantic cons. Her photo. Her name. Every future employer, every business contact, they'd see that article first. The blow landed harder than I expected. Mitch caught her on camera a week later, leaving the agency building in tears. They'd formally terminated her contract. She was radioactive now. And then came the final move. I arranged, through my lawyer, a formal mediation session required under Colorado law before trial escalation. Melissa had no choice but to appear. When I walked into that conference room, it was the first time we'd spoken face-to-face since the night I caught her with Derek. She looked 10 years older. Eyes hollow. Clothes disheveled, makeup barely applied. The mediator began the session and Melissa spoke first, voice trembling. Dean, I know you hate me. I deserve some of that. But please, this is destroying me. I'll walk away from the house if I can just have some of my savings back. I need to start over. I said nothing. Let her twist for a moment. Then I calmly laid out my position. The prenup voided her claim. Her actions had cost me financial loss and reputational harm. I would not negotiate a cent. I ended with this. You didn't just betray me, Melissa. You mocked me. You planned to strip me clean. Now you can live with the reality you made. She broke down sobbing. Right there in front of the mediator, her lawyer, and mine. The cold, composed woman I'd once married was gone. All that remained was a broken shell trying to salvage a life she'd set on fire. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just stood and walked out. Later that night, Mitch texted me. Got word from one of my contacts. Derek tried to withdraw funds from a crypto wallet. Feds intercepted. He's looking at time. I poured a bourbon, sat on my porch, and watched the Colorado sunset. Melissa's perfect new life had imploded. Derek's world was about to collapse in court. And me? I was free. I'd kept my house, protected my assets, and delivered a lesson neither of them would forget. There was one last message from Melissa weeks later, an email. I lost everything. I hope you're satisfied. I read it once. Deleted it without replying. Satisfied? No. But at peace? Damn right. The strange thing about revenge, once the adrenaline fades, what's left is quieter than you expect. Not relief, exactly. Not triumph. More like clarity. For weeks after the mediation, I didn't hear from Melissa again. Our legal team finalized everything. I kept full ownership of the house and assets. She walked away with nothing but her personal clothing and whatever remained in an empty savings account. The prenup, airtight. The public scandal? Permanent. Mitch sent me a clip from a local business forum online. Someone had posted asking about hiring Melissa Warner for a freelance marketing project. The first reply was blunt. Is this the same Melissa Warner tied to the Derek Holloway fraud case? Buyer beware. Her name had become digital poison. I should have felt elated. Instead, what I felt was calm. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. Started running again in the mornings. Cleaned the house from top to bottom, every room, every drawer. Burned the scented candles she used to stockpile. Donated the designer pillows she loved and I hated. It was cleansing in its own way. And life moved forward. Meanwhile, Derek's case progressed fast. His wife's civil suit went public. Local news showed him entering court in cuffs. He faced federal wire fraud charges now. His crypto wallet had been linked to laundering funds from multiple victims. Word was he'd cut a plea deal in exchange for revealing a web of accomplices. No one cared about his excuses. The news labeled him a predatory con man exploiting vulnerable women. Melissa had been one of them. But here's the thing, vulnerability doesn't excuse betrayal. She hadn't been forced to drain our accounts. She hadn't been forced to plan an escape behind my back. She'd chosen her path. And that meant she had to live with the outcome. It was about 6 weeks post-mediation when the next unexpected message came. A simple envelope in my mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a short letter. Dean, I know I have no right to ask for anything. I know I failed you in ways I can't undo. Derek destroyed my life, but I let him. I was blind. Stupid. Arrogant. You didn't deserve what I did. And you didn't deserve my contempt when you were only ever loyal to me. I don't expect forgiveness. But please know I am sorry. Truly. I hope someday you find peace beyond this. Melissa. I stared at the letter for a long while. Then folded it and set it in a drawer. I didn't hate her anymore. But forgiveness wasn't mine to give. What she'd done had changed me, reshaped how I trusted, how I read people, how I moved through the world. The scar would fade, but it would always be there. And that was fine. One final piece of justice came a month later. My lawyer called with an update. Melissa's trust fund administrators had formally denied her request for further disbursement. They'd cited her involvement in potential reputational risk to the trust's integrity. Translation. Even her last fallback was gone. She was starting over from zero. No Derek. No savings. No fancy career. No house. Just the wreckage she'd helped build. As for me, I sold the house. Didn't need it anymore. Too many ghosts in the walls. I bought a small cabin outside Estes Park, quiet, wooded, simple. Mitch helped me move in. You did it, man, he said, cracking a beer on my new porch. She burned herself, I replied. I just lit the match. He nodded. Hell of a match, though. We clinked bottles. And for the first time in what felt like years, I smiled, not out of bitterness or spite, but because I was free. Truly free. One last thing. About 2 months after moving, I ran into Kelsey, Melissa's former best friend, at a grocery store in town. She looked awkward at first but approached me anyway. I'm sorry, she said. For everything. I should have warned you sooner. You didn't know me that, I replied. But thank you. She hesitated. Melissa, she's living with her sister now. Trying to get her life back together. I shrugged. That's her path. Not mine anymore. Kelsey smiled faintly. You handled this with more grace than anyone I know would have. I didn't correct her. It hadn't been grace. It had been strategy. And sometimes, cold strategy is the only path that truly satisfies. Winter came early to the mountains that year. By the time snow blanketed the trees around my cabin, the fire in my veins had burned low. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even cold. I was done. Melissa was gone from my life. The house, the money, the reputation she'd gambled, all lost in the wreckage she and Derek had crafted. And Derek? He'd taken a plea deal, 5 years federal time, minimum. Melissa's name was forever tied to that scandal in public records and search results. She was a cautionary tale now. As for me, life was simple. Work had taken me back full time. Good projects, honest hours. And in the evenings, in the quiet of the woods, I rediscovered pieces of myself I'd forgotten during the years of trying to hold that marriage together. One afternoon in late February, I got a letter forwarded by my old lawyer. Another letter from Melissa. I almost tossed it without reading. Curiosity one. This one was different. Dean, I won't bother you again after this. But I needed to tell you one last thing. I know words don't fix what I did. And I know I can't undo the betrayal. You were a better man than I ever deserved. And you handled this in a way that I never would have had the strength to. I lost everything, but I've earned that. I'm trying to rebuild now piece by piece on my own. I hope you found some peace. I hope truly you're living a life free of all this now. Goodbye, Dean. Melissa. I folded the letter carefully, placed it in a drawer next to the first one. She was trying, it seemed. And that was fine. But I wasn't letting that chapter reopen. Forgiveness isn't a switch. Sometimes the best forgiveness is distance, letting both people carry their scars, but on separate paths that never cross again. Spring thawed the mountain roads. I spent weekends hiking. Started woodworking again, something I'd left behind years ago. Friends called, checked in. Mitch still visited. One sunny afternoon, he and I sat on the cabin porch with beers in hand. You ever regret not torching her more publicly? He asked. I thought about it. No, I said finally. The private burn was enough. Quiet ruins last longer. Public scandals fade, whispers linger forever. He grinned. Spoken like a tactician. Just a man who learned the hard way. A year to the day after the mediation, I sold the last piece of my old life, my truck. Bought a new one. Clean slate. Driving back from the dealer, I passed through Boulder one last time. Stopped for gas not far from where our old house had been. Out of habit, I glanced toward that street. New car in the driveway now. New family from the look of it. The house had moved on. So had I. I smiled. Melissa would live her life, scarred and humbled. Derek would rot in prison. And me? I had reclaimed my name, my life, my peace. And that, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all. Living well. Without her. Without them. Without the weight they tried to pin on me. When you're betrayed, the world narrows to one sharp point. But when you rise carefully, patiently, you find the world is wide again. And some of us? We learn that the coldest revenge isn't destruction. It's freedom.
What do you think of the story? Write in the comments.